There is a moment every woman over 50 knows, standing in front of the mirror wondering if her hair still has options. It does. More than you think, and today we are proving it with 10 cuts that work with the hair you actually have right now, not the hair you had 20 years ago. Grab a cup of something warm, get comfortable, and let's talk hair. I want to say something before we start because I believe it completely. A haircut after 50 is not about hiding, it is about editing. It is about taking away what no longer serves you and keeping every bit of what still makes you, you. So whether your hair has thinned a little, gone silver, changed texture, or simply grown tired of the same shape it has held for a decade, there is a cut in this list that will feel like it was made for exactly where you are right now. We are going through 10 of them today, from short and sculpted to long and flowing, and by the end you will know exactly which words to say to your stylist at your very next appointment. Let's start with the one that never really leaves, the classic bob. This is the cut that hits right at the jawline, clean and structured, and it does something almost magical for fine hair. It makes it look thicker without a single extension or fiber spray. The blunt line at the bottom catches the light evenly across every strand, which is exactly why it reads so polished even on a day you barely touched a brush. If your hair has softened with age, thinner at the ends, a little less cooperative than it once was, this is the cut that gives it its shape back because a blunt edge creates the illusion of density in a way that layers simply cannot. A classic bob also pairs beautifully with silver and gray hair, since the sharp, even line lets every tone in your natural color show clearly rather than getting lost in soft, feathered layers. And here is my honest opinion. A classic bob is one of the few haircuts that genuinely looks more expensive the shorter and blunter it is. So do not let anyone talk you into softening the line. The sharpness is the whole point. If you are nervous about committing to something this precise, ask your stylist to keep it just at the jaw rather than above it. That small difference in placement is the line between striking and severe on most face shapes. Maintenance is refreshingly simple too. A trim every 6 to 8 weeks keeps the shape crisp, and on the days in between, a flat iron or even a quick blow dry with a paddle brush is really all it asks of you. From there we move into something a little more relaxed, the textured bob. This takes everything the classic bob does and loosens it, soft casual waves instead of a sleek finish, movement instead of precision. It is the same chin-grazing length, but the ends are cut to break up rather than align, tiny internal layers and a razor finish that give the whole style natural body without a single extra product. This is the bob for the woman who wants structure on the days she wants it and undone waves on the days she does not, because both live in the same cut. If your hair has a little natural wave already, this style barely needs styling at all. You simply let your texture do what it already wants to do. Maybe with a scrunch of mousse through damp hair and nothing more. The textured bob is also wonderfully kind to hair that has changed in the last few years, coarser in some places, finer in others, because the internal layering gives every different texture somewhere to fall naturally instead of fighting against a single blunt line. It works beautifully with balayage or subtle highlights too, since the broken ends catch dimension and color the way a smooth, sleek bob simply cannot. When you sit down in the chair, the words to use are point cutting and razor texturizing. That is the language that tells your stylist you want movement built into the ends rather than a heavy, straight-across line. And if you are someone who air dries most mornings out of habit rather than choice, this cut genuinely rewards that habit. A little sea salt spray scrunched through damp hair is often the entire routine, start to finish. Before we move on, I want to pause on something. So many of you write to me convinced that a shorter cut will age you, and I understand where that fear comes from, but in my experience, it is almost always the opposite. The right short cut, cut with real intention rather than simply chopped off out of frustration, tends to make a woman look more current, not less, because it shows confidence rather than concealment. Keep that in mind as we keep moving through today's list. Some of these are shorter than you might normally choose, and I would encourage you to stay open-minded. Next is a length so many women over 50 gravitate toward once they find it, the long bob or the lob as most stylists call it. This one schemes the shoulders, which means you keep real length while still cutting away the weight that drags fine or thinning hair flat. It is easy to manage. It works sleek and pressed for the office or wavy and loose for the weekend. And it sits at a length that flatters nearly every face shape past 50 because it lands right where the jaw softens into the neck, drawing the eye gently downward rather than widening the face the way a shorter, blunter cut sometimes can. I will say this plainly. The lob is the safest haircut on this entire list, and sometimes safe is exactly what you need while you find your footing again with a new style. It is also the easiest length to grow into or out of if you are coming from long hair and are not ready to commit to something short. The lob is a gentle first step, and if you are coming from a pixie and want a little more length to work with, it is a graceful place to land as well. Ask your stylist for a slight layer at the ends if your hair tends to look heavy at this length. It keeps the movement alive without sacrificing the shoulder-skimming silhouette that makes this cut so universally flattering. Now, let's go shorter into the long pixie. This is a sophisticated cut, short through the sides and back with longer pieces left on top, and those longer pieces are what make it work so beautifully over 50 because they can be lifted, swept, or tucked to highlight your cheekbones and open up your whole face in a way that longer hair, no matter how well cut, simply cannot replicate. A pixie this short takes confidence. I will not pretend otherwise, but it rewards that confidence every single morning with a wash-and-go routine that takes minutes, not an hour. If you have been growing your hair out simply because you think you are supposed to, ask yourself honestly whether a cut like this might actually make you feel more like yourself. A long pixie also happens to be remarkably flattering on silver and white hair, since the shorter length keeps the color looking crisp and bright rather than pulling it down with weight, and a small amount of texturizing cream worked through damp hair before it dries is genuinely the entire styling routine most days. Close behind it is a softer version, the Wispy Textured Pixie, where the long pixie lifts and structures. This one feathers and relaxes. The edges are cut with soft, wispy pieces rather than clean lines, which gives the whole style a playful, youthful energy without ever looking like it is trying too hard. It is remarkably low maintenance, a little texturizing paste worked through damp hair, and you are finished. And it is one of the most forgiving pixie variations for hair that is thinned because the wispy, feathered pieces create the illusion of density rather than exposing the scalp the way a heavier, more solid pixie sometimes can. This cut is also a lovely option if you are transitioning away from color and letting your natural gray grow in. The soft, broken texture blends new growth far more gracefully than a sharp, structured cut would. A dime-sized amount of light styling cream, scrunched rather than combed through, is all this style ever asks of you. And if you find yourself somewhere between wanting a bold long pixie and feeling nervous about going quite that short, this wispy version is the gentler entry point. Ask your stylist to leave a touch more length through the crown and sides than a typical pixie calls for, so there is still something to tuck behind your ear on the mornings you want it out of your face entirely. From pixies, we move into a cut with real personality, the layered shag. This is choppy, textured, full of volume right at the crown with movement built into every layer down to the ends. It is a cut that looks effortless but is actually quite deliberate. Every layer placed to create lift where you need it most, particularly at the roots, which is often the very first place volume tends to disappear as hair changes with age. And this is one of my strong opinions for today. The shag might be the single most underused cut for women over 50 because people assume it belongs to 25-year-olds on television, when in truth the volume and movement it creates is exactly what mature hair benefits from most. Do not overlook this one simply because it looks a little rock and roll in photographs. On real hair at real length, it softens beautifully. A texturizing spray at the roots before you blow dry upside down is the fastest way to bring this cut fully to life. Then there is a cut that has taken over the beauty world in the last few years, the butterfly cut. Heavily layered, with face-framing pieces cut like wings that sweep out and around. This style is built for bounce, fullness, and a kind of seamless flow you rarely get from a standard layered cut. It works on medium to long hair, and it is extraordinarily flattering because those face-framing wings do exactly what curtain bangs do, just with more drama and movement woven through the rest of the length. If you want a cut that photographs beautifully and moves when you walk into a room, this is the one. It does require a bit more styling than some of the shorter cuts on this list, usually a round brush blowout or a loose curl with a wand to really let those wing layers fan out the way they are meant to, but the payoff is a head of hair that looks intentionally full rather than simply long, which is precisely the complaint I hear most from women whose long hair has started to look flat with time. If you are not ready for heavy layering, consider long layers instead, a softer, more cascading approach. Rather than heavy chunks cut throughout, these layers are soft and gradual, which keeps your length intact while preventing that flat, heavy look that so often happens to long hair once it passes a certain age or a certain length. This cut is quietly one of the most requested changes I hear about from women who love their length but feel like it has started to look tired because long layers restore movement without asking you to give up a single inch. It is also one of the lowest maintenance cuts on today's list, since the soft layering grows out gracefully over months without ever needing a dramatic reshape. A trim every 10 to 12 weeks to keep the ends healthy is really all it requires. No matter which length you choose from today's list, consider pairing it with curtain bangs, a soft, parted fringe that sweeps outward on both sides to frame your eyes and cheekbones. This is not the heavy, blunt bang of decades past. It is soft, it is versatile, and it genuinely works with nearly every face shape and every hair type. Curtain bangs are, in my honest opinion, the single easiest way to update any haircut on this list without committing to a full change, because they can be grown out or trimmed back with almost no disruption to the rest of your style, and they soften the entire face in a way that very few other single changes can match. They pair beautifully with every cut we have talked about today, sharpening the classic bob, softening the shag, and adding one more layer of movement to the butterfly cut, which is exactly why so many stylists recommend them as the first thing to try when you want change, but are not ready for something drastic. Styling them is simple. Blow dry with a round brush, pulling each side outward and slightly back, away from your face rather than straight down over it, and finish with a small amount of light hairspray so they hold their sweep through the day rather than falling flat against your forehead by noon. And if you already wear glasses, curtain bangs are one of the very few fringe styles that genuinely work around frames instead of clashing with them, since the outward sweep leaves the top of the frame uncovered. And finally, we end with something that is not a cut at all but a finish, the voluminous blowout. Rounded ends, extra lift at the roots, a polished bounce that pulls every one of these 9 cuts together into something glamorous. A blowout is proof that a great cut is only half the equation. The way you style a day-to-day is what carries it through a lifetime of mornings, meetings, dinners, and everything in between. Learn to do this one well at home: a round brush, a good blow dryer, and a small amount of heat protectant, and every single cut on this list will look finished rather than merely trimmed. Section your hair into 4 or 5 parts before you begin. Work from the underneath layers outward, and always finish each section with a blast of cool air to lock the shape in place. That one step is the difference between a blowout that lasts until lunch and one that lasts through the whole day. A voluminous blowout is also, in my opinion, the most flattering way to wear color of any kind after 50, because the extra lift and roundness catches light across every single strand rather than letting color sit flat against the head. If you are investing in highlights, balayage, or a rich, deliberate gray, a blowout is what shows that investment off. And if you are pressed for time, even lifting just the crown section with a round brush before you air dry the rest will give you 80% of the effect in a fraction of the time, which is exactly the kind of shortcut I believe in. Now, a word on choosing between all 10 of these. because I know that is really the question on your mind. Think first about your mornings, honestly, not aspirationally. If you have 5 minutes most days, lean toward the pixies, the shag, or the classic bob. If you love a longer styling ritual and genuinely enjoy the process, the butterfly cut and the blowout will reward that time beautifully. Think next about your hair's natural behavior. Hair that already waves on its own will always look better working with that wave. The textured bob, the shag, the long layers, rather than fighting it with something built for pinned straight hair. And finally, think about what you are actually trying to say with this next cut, because a haircut is always a small kind of statement. A classic bob says precision. A long pixie says confidence. Long layers say ease. There is no wrong answer here, only the one that is honestly, truly you right now, today, not 5 years ago, and not 5 years from now. I would love to know which of these 10 spoke to you today. Tell me in the comments which one you are taking to your next salon appointment, because I read every single one, and so many of you have told me that seeing a cut named and explained clearly is what finally gave you the courage to ask for it by name instead of pointing at a photo and hoping for the best. Every style today was chosen because it works with the hair you have now, not the hair from a magazine, and not the hair from another decade of your life. If this helped you picture your next cut a little more clearly, consider subscribing so you never miss the next conversation we have about looking and feeling like exactly who you are right now. And if there is a hair texture, a length, or an occasion you would love to see covered next, tell me below, because so many of these videos begin with a request from someone just like you. Thank you for spending this time with me today. A great haircut was never about chasing youth, it was always about choosing yourself. I will see you in the next one.